Before mental illness was somewhat understood, people who showed even the slightest sign of a mental problem were sent to an insane asylum. There, they would often be subjected to horrendous tortures and miserable living conditions that often resulted in their deaths. And with the amount of illness, tragedy, torture and death that happened, it's no wonder that many asylums are said to be haunted, and here we have 5 of the creepiest and most haunted asylums in the world. The Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. Operating as a mental institution from 1864 until 1994, this asylum in western West Virginia, USA was originally built to house 250 mentally ill patients, but by the 1950s, more than 2,600 unfortunate patients were held there. This was of course far more than the workers could care for, and as a result the hospital became an incredibly overcrowded and unpleasant place to be. The patients there were suffering from a variety of different medical conditions, from schizophrenia to dementia, and unfortunately many of them were subjected to terrible medical treatments in a misguided attempt to cure their minds. Shock therapy, water shock treatment, padded cells, solitary confinement and regular beatings are just a handful of things that took place at the asylum. Add this to the fact that thousands of patients died, and you can see why it's regarded as one of the most haunted asylums in America. Common paranormal experiences include hearing the sound of squeaking, rolling trolleys throughout the hallways, and what sounds like screaming inmates yelling warnings from within the building. Full-body apparitions of patients, a nurse, and a Civil War soldier believed to be called Jacob have also been witnessed by many. In 2008, the paranormal team Ghost Hunters visited the hospital to conduct an investigation, and this is what they managed to capture.
Who's that? Who's that?
You hear that?
Yeah, that sounded like a little kid.
And I decided that when we were walking through the Civil War area, that we'd put a digital recorder down on a windowsill.
You are kidding me.
Not kidding.
I know ghost hunters have been bashed for faking a lot of stuff, but that is still very strange. The Allegheny Lunatic Asylum was closed in 1994 after being deemed unusable due to its appalling conditions. It was purchased 13 years later and is now open to the public, with ghost tours and even overnight stays happening all year round. Whittingham Hospital was once the largest and regarded as the best mental institution in Britain, but by 1965 its legacy started to decline. Allegations began to rumour that the staff were mistreating patients, claims that patients were being fed mixed together leftover food, and the rumour that one patient was set on fire by 2 nurses was causing an uproar with the public. Due to this, the head nurse retired and the hospital was closed down in 1995. Ever since its closing, there has been a high level of paranormal activity, and many paranormal groups that visit say they get a terrible, dreaded feeling as if they are not welcome, and feel as though they're being watched. There are also reports of hearing unexplained moans and shouting throughout the asylum, believed to be former patients. A night nurse who worked there shared a few of his experiences of possible paranormal encounters during his career. He recalled a time that he was sitting up one night with a colleague at around 3 AM. They were both chatting and suddenly the other worker went very quiet and had a look of terror on her face. She said she'd seen a shape on the other nurse's shoulder before it vanished a few seconds later and was certain that something was stood behind him. Another time, the same worker was walking through a shortcut corridor between the wards. There were always stories about this particular corridor being haunted, that one time a girl had gone down and halfway through the lights mysteriously turned off. Whilst walking down there, the lights didn't go off, but the worker felt extremely uncomfortable, as if something or someone was watching him. And even though he is skeptical of the paranormal, he said he walked very quickly down that corridor. There's no denying Whittingham has a brutal past, and it seems that soon, the asylum will be completely knocked down and replaced with homes. But just imagine living in a house knowing that it was once the place of the UK's most haunted mental institute. The Rolling Hills in New York was founded in 1827. It was originally a working farm but soon became a place to keep mentally ill people away from society. Widows, orphans, the elderly and even criminals were also kept there, and eventually the staff just could not keep up with the different needs of all the occupants. There are over 1,700 documented deaths at the Rolling Hills, and is believed to be plagued with paranormal activity. The most famous is the sighting of a former patient named Roy Cruz. He was a 7.5-foot giant who suffered from gigantism caused by a tumour. After his death in 1942, his shadow has been witnessed patrolling the asylum and the room he used to live in. Sharon Coyle, who owns and lives on the property, has told of many personal encounters during her stay, one of which she believes was Roy. After walking into a rat in the infirmary shortly after moving in, she screamed and ran away. But the morning after, she found the rat dead on some stairs, with clear signs its neck had been broken. On the wall above the rat was a giant bloody handprint, and Sharon believes that the ghost of Roy witnessed her distress and killed the rat for her. The morgue and the first floor are said to be the most haunted areas in the old asylum. One time, Sharon left a tape recorder in one of the first floor rooms and caught the distinct voice of an elderly woman calling out hello. After showing it to a former worker of the hospital, she was certain it was a former patient called Hattie, who was blind and would shout hello to get the attention of the nurses. One area known as the Shadow Hallway is also said to be very active with ghosts. Shadowy apparitions have been seen peeking out from doors, crawling across the corridor floor, and it's believed visitors have even been knocked off their feet by an unseen force. All of this definitely makes the Rolling Hills one very eerie and haunted asylum. Pennhurst Mental Asylum. This next asylum was truly a horrendous place to be, and like most mental hospitals, it's the ones that have been the place of patient neglect and mistreatment that seem to house the most evil spirits, and the Pennhurst Mental Asylum is no exception to this. Opened in 1908 in Pennsylvania, America, Pennhurst was a state school for mentally and physically disabled children, but as well as a school, it was also a medical hospital, and reports suggest that patients were chained to walls, children were kept in their cribs for months on end, and murders were frequent. The most common of the paranormal reports at Pennhurst are EVPs, and respected ghost groups often catch what appears to be former patients yelling, "Get out, I'll kill you, and help me." People have also witnessed objects being thrown, equipment being pushed around, and people being touched by unseen entities. You know me, I like to add some real footage in my videos, and during an investigation in 2009, Ghost Adventures caught some very bizarre recordings, this one being the clearest. You can hear what sounds like unexplained footsteps and noises, as well as what they believe is a breath and then a door slamming shut. The team say that no one was near the camera or the area at the time this was recorded, and believe it was definitely paranormal. Pennhurst was closed in 1986 after years of controversy. The building was basically just left, leaving behind lots of equipment and patients' belongings, giving a grisly reminder into the horrific conditions the patients had to endure. Most of you have probably heard of this next one. It's the Waverly Hills Sanatorium, located high up on a hill in Louisville, Kentucky. Although built in 1924 as a place to house those suffering from tuberculosis, it also housed many mentally ill people, and in 1962 was turned into a mental hospital. During its time as an asylum, the Waverly Hills quickly became overpopulated like many other asylums of its day. The patients were often subjected to horrendous experiments, and so many deaths occurred that a tunnel known as the Death Tunnel was put in place to transport the dead. The usual shadow people lurking in corridors, accompanied by disembodied voices and slamming doors, have all been reported, and a story goes that in 1928 the head nurse in room 502 was found dead in her room. She had committed suicide by hanging herself. 4 years later, another nurse jumped from room 502's roof patio, and both nurses who sadly took their own lives have been reported on the floor that room 502 is on. And many visitors and investigators have strong feelings of despair, and have heard a creepy voice shout, "Get out." Another disturbing report is that of an elderly lady who is said to be seen crying for help, bleeding from her wrists and ankles, and the faint voices of children are often heard singing "Ring Around the Rosie" on the rooftop. A little boy called Robert and a girl called Mary are said to haunt the 3rd floor, and Mary has been reported to have no eyes. During an investigation at the Waverly Hills in 2010, the Ghost Adventures team captured some chilling EVPs. They believe this ghost is saying "Remember me," but many have said it sounds like Mary Lee, who is believed to be a former patient that is often seen. Take a listen.
Digital recorder Nick, my friend, is holding. Can you tell us your name? Did you hear that?
Yeah, I heard it.
Can you tell us your name? Did you hear that?
Yeah, I heard it.
The Ghost Adventures team also caught this EVP whilst in the same room.
Nick's digital recorder just captured this voice, which sounds like a child responding to me.
Just stay over here with me.
That's pretty creepy, and do you think that it was a spirit or a former patient trying to contact the Ghost Adventures crew? With not just its asylum history, but also its history as a TB hospital, you can see why the Waverly Hills is a popular attraction for paranormal investigators and also a place to hold satanic rituals. And as crazy as it sounds, there are future plans to turn this haunted asylum into a 4-star hotel. Now that really would be one creepy place to spend the night. So, that's 5 mental asylums that are believed to be haunted. I hope you've enjoyed, and see you next week for another video, 5 most unethical psychological experiments ever performed.